Well, proceedings at the State of the Nation address were delayed after several points of order were raised by ATM leader Vuyo Zungula and several EFF members, including leader Julius Malema. Speaker of the National Assembly, Vuyo Zungula, eventually expelled Zungula, and EFF members tried to storm the president's podium before being forcefully removed from the venue. The EFF has since said that they would be taking the matter to court. But was it simply a demonstration, or was the engagements the EFF a threat to the president? Communications officer at Right2Protest Omhle Ntshingila joins us now for more on this. So, Omhle, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us on our platform this morning. I mean, let's start the conversation there. This instance that we saw within the City Hall's chambers where the EFF engaged in protest action, was that, from your perspective, a proper demonstration as we've come to understand it, as essentially confined in the Constitution?
Thank you, Dr. for having me, and thank you to your viewers for watching the program today. So, from our perspective as the Right to Protest, what members of Parliament had done on the day of SONA is considered a protest. Anything that defines a protest as a demonstration, a picket, or a procession, it can be exercised by each and every member of the parliamentary or the National Assembly or any citizen in South Africa under the Section 17 of our Constitution.
When we saw the EFF essentially being ejected from the City Hall's chambers, I mean, would you call that an infringement of that particular right? Because that's essentially what's in question here, why the economic freedom fighters are looking to put together some sort of court action, legal action. Was that an infringement of their rights? The scenes that we saw of those armed forces coming in and expelling them from those chambers.
So I just want to make it clear that any security hired under the state or the government should not be identifiable. They should be dressed in the identifiable uniform that is prescribed to each security personnel of the state, and should have a name tag when dealing with any sort of instruction coming from the Speaker of Parliament or a presiding officer during a time of protest. Now, this was not necessarily an infringement on members of Parliament, but this issue has happened before during the Julius and versus the Speaker case before, in reviewing the Section 11 of the Rules of Assembly. And in the Section Rules of Assembly, it was stated that members of Parliament have the right to express their freedom of expression in the National House of Assembly. However, when it comes to protest, the Section 11 was not properly reviewed and does not elaborate on the right to protest of members of Parliament when it comes to different positions that happen or processes that happen within the House of National Assembly. Now, this is very problematic and concerning because freedom of speech does include exercising the right to protest within the House of Parliament. And it's very concerning to see the response of the Speaker when it comes to protest, but it's actually not isolated from society, as this is how government also responds to protest outside of institutions of government like Parliament or any other institution, whether it be in the Constitutional Court as well. So it's quite concerning how protest is responded to when it comes to bodies of authorities in our country.
Right. Well, how should such bodies of authority respond in instances where you are seeing a protest or a demonstration of some sort? Because remember, at the heart of this was a parliamentary process that needed to get underway. This is the prerogative of the President and the prerogative of Parliament, both houses of Parliament, to have an opportunity to hear from the country's chief executive exactly what his vision is for the country. And so this is an important moment and crucial and critical to the effective governance of this country. So how should a body of authority that is tasked with carrying that out respond to instances of protest and demonstration so that it is not disruptive to the point where the business of Parliament cannot get underway? That in and of itself would be an infringement for South African citizens who are wanting to hear from the President.
I think, firstly, the House of Parliament needs to decide and be more elaborative when it describes what disturbances are, because the House of Parliament is a space of debate and it's a space of robust debate, and the right to protest or protest action of any form is included in the definition of debating robust debates and bringing forth different challenges that are faced by society within Parliament. And it is important that all members of Parliament exercise their right to protest when the need arises, including during times where there are certain processes or certain positions that are happening within the National House of Assembly. I think when it comes to disturbing a business of the day, it's a definition of protest. Without a particular type of protest, then there isn't any awareness that is highlighted on issues that concern society at large. And it is important that members of Parliament continue to practice the right to protest in order to highlight issues that will advance society at large.
I mean, we know that the right to protest is constitutionally enshrined, but with any right in that constitution, we know that there are limitations. They are not just outright rights on their own and without any curtailment or limitations. In your understanding, what would constitute a lawful limitation on the right to protest in a scenario such as the one that we've been presented with? Or perhaps is this something that we probably are going to need, the judiciary to clarify for us?
I think this again goes back to the case Julius versus National Speaker Assembly. Again, to re-look at the rules of the National Assembly and re-look at Section 11 again in the rights and the privileges of members of Parliament, but also in how members of Parliament should conduct themselves when it comes to practicing their other constitutional rights that they have as citizens. And I think this is something that the judiciary needs to expand on a bit more. And the past happenings, the political happenings that have happened during SONA really call for that to happen, because there can't be a time when the right to protest is not protected, be it of a citizen or be it of a member of Parliament. And there really needs to be a re-looking of how then do parliamentary members exercise their different rights in order to advance any sort of bills or bring any sort of awareness of socio-economic issues that are happening within our country. And I think it's very important that the judiciary look at this now and not wait for the protection of the right to protest in South Africa.
All right, well, we'll leave that conversation there for now. That was Omhle Ntshingila, Communications and Engagements Officer at the Right to Protest, helping us there to unpack what exactly happened, the chaos that unfolded within the City Halls at Chambers during the President's State of the Nation address.